Hi guys, this is Anno from the Xzistor lab, and we are back with Troopy, our simple little Lego robot. And in this video we will see how the Xzistor concept brain model can generate fears or phobias in the mind of this little robot. The way we were going to do that is to actually give Troopy a fear of darkness using that dark area in his confine. So when he navigates to this area, he will, the moment his whole field of view is filled with the color black, he will experience an instinctive fear of darkness. And guarding this dark area of his confine is a Skeletor. Skeletor, how are you doing today?
Hey, keep your paws off my candy, buddy. Nope, I'm not in a sharing mood today.
Poor Skeletor, still very much caught up in the Halloween mindset, still hasn't moved on yet. So back to Troopy. We will now see how Troopy is going to experience this fear of darkness. I think more importantly, we will see how the Xzistor concept brain model runs on the computer, and we'll look at the dashboard showing some of the graphs to understand better what happens inside the mind of this little robot. And then we will give Troopy a chance to get ready to face this fear of darkness. Right, now we're back with Troopy. Let's see what preparations he's made for his onslaught on his fear of darkness. Oh my goodness, it looks to me like he's gone to quite some extremes. Let's see what he's got there. Oh, he's such a drama queen, look at this. Little flashlight, bandana, armed to the teeth with his laser gun, and he's even got his mobile phone to call 911 if all else fails. We will navigate him towards the dark area in his confine and see what his reaction is. So as he moves closer, suddenly he sees the darkness and he retreats back. Right, so now that we've seen what Troopy's physical response is to these fear of darkness, let's take a look at the laptop where the brain model is running and look at what we can learn from the some of the graphs on the dashboard. So if we look at the graphs on the dashboard, I think first of all let's take a look at this area over here in the middle top of the dashboard. This is where we see exactly the video image that Troopy is seeing. And we can now show, for instance, if I take control of the robot and I will turn him around in the direction of the dark area, we'll see how he starts to move in that direction and focuses on that area. Now I want you to take a good look at the graph on the right hand side over here at the top. There's some colors there, some pink and blue colors, and also at the bottom. So I want you to ignore all those. Please ignore all those lines. And we're just interested in the green line. So the green line is going to tell us when the phobia is generated. It'll jump up, read very high, be quite prominent in the brain, and this derivative state will give us a feeling of what's happening inside the brain. We'll see it prolongs as long as Troopy is in the area of the darkness, and as he retreats it will peter out and to disappear. The important thing is just to see it'll shoot up at a certain point when there's enough black in his field of view, and as he retreats back and the field of view reduces, it'll go down. And remember, this is a logarithmic scale, so although it looks like it drops down quite quickly, it actually it will decline linearly. So let's navigate the robot now to the black dark area, and we'll see at a certain point when there's enough black in his field of view, there will be a jerk reaction and he will pull away from it. And at that stage, just take a good look at this graph on the right hand side for the green line that'll appear there, and we'll interpret that afterwards. So now I'm going to click on the video. I'm going to drive the robot towards the black, and you can just see the moment the black goes critical, we see there's the green line and he pulls away, and that's the effect that we have there. So he's far enough away now from the field of view not to see enough black to actually have a fear of darkness, and the green line has disappeared. So I think I'll just do that again, and then we'll just freeze the frame on that green graph and just have a bit of more of a discussion on that. So let's just see what happens if he goes back there, and when he sees enough black, there's the line there, and he pulls away. So let's freeze the frame there just for a minute and take a look at what happens there. So here we have the dark area. We can see we've just entered the dark area, and the phobia, or the instinctive fear, has just been initiated. So on the right, if we look at the green curve, it's literally just initiated, and very, very dominant in the brain at the moment. Let's just take a look at some of the other graphs. If we go down here, interesting, we will see that the blue curve is now below the brown curve, indicating that there's some unhappiness. But what's interesting is that the robot is obviously unhappy even before it enters the phobia. And I just wanted to explain that I know the little robot so well by now that I know that he's actually hungry. So that's why he's in a bit of an unhappy state. But at the moment he enters the phobia, you can see this increases, and he's even more of an unhappy camper. On this side over here on the top left, we have another interesting graph helping us to understand the actual brain states as they evolve. And I don't want to go into too much detail, but what we see there is that the phobia is actually generated via the mechanism of association in the brain. So it's the association forming area that's creating the phobia, and not what is really being experienced by the robot. So it's literally what is stored in the mind and comes from the mind. And the way I've actually engineered this phobia is actually to drive the robot into the wall, and then let him experience pain. And then when he comes away from that, I actually extract the memory, and I copy the part which will cause the fear from walking into the wall and experiencing that pain, and I simply paste it into this association with darkness. So where the robot was able to say, well, I walked into the wall, that was painful, that's what is causing my unhappiness. In this case, he will have the same feeling of fear, but he will not be able to explain why. There was no event that triggered it, a learning event. It's literally just a preset that I program into the association part of the brain even before the robot is literally starts up. Down here on the very left-hand side, we have just a facial expression. This helps me to just quickly understand at a glance what the robot is at in his mind, and we'll talk about these facial expressions a little bit more later on. So, like always, this bottom center part of the dashboard is literally just for me to show me that the robot is running, and the program is running. So it gives me a dynamic pattern. You just at a glance know that the robot brain model has not hung. It's still running actively. And with that, I think let's now move to the end of the phobia, and there's just one or two other interesting aspects I would like to point out. So here we move towards the end of the phobia. We can see the robot has moved away from the dark area, and it's not easy to detect, but if you look at the green curve on the right hand side at the top here, he's starting to diminish, he's starting to go down, decrease downwards, and because of the logarithmic scale, it's not that clear, but it's actually going down quite steep. And if we come down to this general happiness curve, we can see actually that the state of the robot has gone from very unhappy, come down, and it's on its way down. And actually, as the phobia or the instinctive fear recedes, actually goes in a state where it experiences a state of slight happiness. And if we come over here left and we look at the facial expression, we see indeed that he's got a slight smile on his face. So just to explain that, it all relates to the adrenaline level, and to explain that is we saw the phobia or the instinctive fear spike up quite rapidly when he enters the dark area. But when he leaves the dark area, it actually recedes quite slowly, at a steady pace. And the reason for that is the fact that this adrenaline that must sort of dissipate, and that's why it takes time for the phobia to actually diminish. And that is actually going from an anxious state or a fearful state, coming down to a normal state is actually a big relief. And that is why we see the slight happiness on the face. Although the context will dominate, that the robot will probably be still fearful and just thinking about his fearful experience, in the background he's actually enjoyed intense relief. And why that is interesting is it's very similar in humans. So we do things actually to get ourselves into this fearful state, just to enjoy that bit of pleasure of the adrenaline receding, or the so-called adrenaline rush. So we'll watch scary movies, we'll do scary things and get a big rush out of it, or go to extremes and do base jumping, and then afterwards say, I'm experiencing this adrenaline rush. And that's exactly what it is, what's happening here. And we can see how the Xzistor concept brain model tallies that up and actually kicks out this slightly positive state, which is interesting, coming from unhappiness to actually a positive happiness state. And this will linger until the phobia is dissipated. So just a quick other comment about the facial expression. That is hardwired to the phobia. It's not part of the phobia itself. The robot retreating away from the dark area is a hardwired reflex. It's not part of the phobia algorithm, as well as the little yelp that the robot gives. So he shouts a little when he enters the dark area. He would say "yikes," like this. And these three, although when looking at the robot externally, these behaviors is what will catch the eye and what will be probably amusing. These are hardwired reflexes, and is not part of the phobia algorithm. We can attach these reflexes to almost any state or subjective state in the brain. So just to make sure that we don't confuse those behaviors with as part of the phobia. Before we step off the topic, I just want to very quickly take you back to Troopy. Troopy's ancestor, a little simulation called Simi, and just show you how we already modeled all of this and proved the concept in that robot simulation. So let's go and take a quick look at Simi in his confine. So here we have Simi in his confine. He's got the same color pattern around his confine. I just can't find his key to flash it up. So he actually just also see black, just like Troopy. And there's the response, exactly the same response as Troopy. So for those of you interested in the conspiracy theories and whether we live in a matrix, Simi actually has got no idea. He's not a physical robot. He experiences life exactly like Troopy does. Feels physical boundaries, feels pain, just like Troopy does. Let's look at some conclusions and thoughts on the implementation of instinctive fear and phobias. The important thing here is the brain model explains to us how we can install instinctive fear into the brain of Troopy. And it also explains what a phobia is. So the moment we exaggerate the fear to the extent that the other functions in the brain is so jeopardized that the robot can not perform its prime mission anymore, then we could easily call it a phobia and just say it's not helpful anymore. It's causing severe distress in the robot. He's living most of the time in fear, while an instinctive fear is a balanced fear that we can use to avoid hazardous situations, and it can be fully integrated into the mind, just as it is in the human brain. So it's helpful that the Xzistor concept brain model explains to us the interfaces between instinctive fears and phobias and the other brain functions. I think that's the whole point, is the fact that these instinctive fears are fully integrated into the other algorithms, and it as such lends itself to be influenced by intelligence and emotions. The robot can learn, can get smarter about avoiding these fears, find solutions, and it's not just a simple if-then statement or a simple reflex which says if I see something or if I sense something, I must do this, and that's it. There's scope for learning, for developing, all based on the normal intelligence and emotional apparatus in the brain. So this allows us now to design cognitive architectures with instinctive fears. We can attach reflexes to these instinctive fears, so it's quite easily to decide on a helpful reflex when we subject the robot to an instinctive fear. For instance, where we say the robot entered an area of darkness, we would say just there's a reflex, retreat out of that. It could not be safe. Maybe you want to think about going into a dark area first. So instinctive reflex just to retreat away from the potentially dangerous area. Alternatively, we do not have to attach a reflex to a fear. We can just let the robot experience the fear and learn to avoid it or mitigate it by way of its own intelligence and emotional circuitry and algorithms. So let's take a look at some practical uses. The big thing is now we're trying to build robots with brains just like humans, and we've proven this Xzistor concept brain model can do many things, and this is just another one on the tick list that we want to say, okay, instinctive fear and phobias, we can achieve that by the simple few algorithms running in the Xzistor concept brain model. So we can help the robot to understand cognition and emotion, and all of that is achieved by the simple algorithms driving the model. Obviously, why would we use instinctive fears and phobias? Phobias we won't use so much because we say it's disruptive, it's not helpful. Instinctive fears we will use to protect robots against hazardous environments. Typically, there could be many reasons why we want to use it, but if we want to generate an instinctive fear, it will probably always be to avoid some sort of hazardous situation or some sort of adverse effect. So let's take a look at some case studies now for neuroarchitects to consider when designing instinctive fears into robots. There's a typical situation where we have a robot deploying a robot or more than one robot into a sort of, let's say, a factory, a facility, or it could even be a ship or a mining or any sort of potentially hazardous environment. There might be chemical hazards. And what we giving the robot is an instinctive fear of unknown objects or barriers. And we will let the robot explore autonomously the area. When the robot encounters an object that is unfamiliar with or a barrier, it will develop a fear. This will enter the normal intelligence and emotional machinery, and the robot will learn to avoid it and stay safe and yet complete its mission. If we were just to add an if-then statement, if do close, then turn around and go away, the robot will not learn, it will not get clever around completing its mission. There's no scope for that sort of learning involvement. So just a simple if-then statement. We see this all the time in simple toy robots. That's not going to work here. We need the fear, the instinctive fear, to be part of the complete cognizance and intelligence machinery and the emotion machinery of the robot for it to evolve and get smarter like a human brain would do under those circumstances. Next one here is a typical application. Let's say we deploy a robot or a colony of robots to a planet like Mars, which I think just will make so much more sense than trying to put humans there. We can design them so that they are very, very at home and comfortable in that environment, and actually they will actually experience Earth as a very challenging and an hostile environment. So we can really design them so that they fit in with the atmosphere, the gravity, the physical terrain, and all those things. And in this case, we can give the robot an instinctive fear of steep angles or inclines, and just say when you move around on the planet and you get to a ditch or a trench or something, first experience of fear, you don't want to injure yourself. Think about it a bit and get clever about what you're going to do about it. Similar for strange objects or larger unfamiliar objects, we can just give an instinctive fear to the robot to say, just, if you're looking at something that's higher than yourself, you haven't seen before, you will have an instinctive fear, and just bring in a little bit of caution as instead of just running into it or approaching it directly, or perhaps damaging either the device or the robot. We're staying on Mars at the moment, so we can see there might be some rocky outcrops or something a robot want to be careful of. When designing this robot, we will put some instinctive fears in there to avoid objects, once again, that's larger and unfamiliar. Proceed with caution. On the left-hand side, what I try to illustrate there is just, let's say, a dust storm. So we don't have to stick with the classical human sort of brain states. We can take something like a dust storm and give a robot instinctive fear of a dust storm. So the moment the robot senses the dust, it might go into hiding, it might close its camera lenses down, or similar, and it's all, again, it's part of the fear circuitry, so that the robot will learn how to do that best, how to optimize it, and literally get better at it all the time. An obvious one, electronics and water. It's not friends, so we want to be careful for a robot to enter water. So we can just give the robot instinctive fear of water. When it senses the water, it'll be cautious. It'll move away. It will not enjoy being there. It will feel discomfort, and we will see it learn to avoid the water over time. Unless, of course, the robot was specifically designed to operate underwater, where we can also use instinctive fear. So let's say we're deploying robots to autonomously explore areas, very, very deep areas let's say in the Mariana Trench or so, but we understand the limits of the device. So we will give it an instinctive fear of pressure due to ocean depth, and the robot will then learn to stay at a certain depth before incurring any damage, and it'll be part of the intelligence circuitry. It'll learn how to avoid it, how to be clever about it, and the robot will be able to operate autonomously, and let's say come back after 14 days to the surface and report the mapping or the exploration that was done autonomously. This is an interesting one. So we know about the problem with nuclear reactors, and we've seen what happened at Fukushima and Chernobyl, where they have deployed robots into a high radiation environment. Many of these robots have perished. Effectively got a bit of a robot graveyard at Fukushima. So one can give a robot an instinctive fear of radiation. Now humans can't sense radiation, but we can make the robot sense the radiation and actually develop a fear of it. In that way, the robot will learn to avoid high radiation, protect itself against it, and stay safe. In this case, interesting one could be a colony of robots deployed into a destroyed reactor or a damaged reactor, and where they explore into the nooks and crannies of this reactor, they can actually have a joined memory base. So as the robots learn how to navigate down the passages, the other robots will automatically adopt that learning, so that when they arrive in that area of the reactor, they will already have the optimized learning of the other robots. So they will share, they'll have a sort of a collective memory as they explore the reactor. That's quite easy to do. I mean, we see that Troopy is running on a laptop which is sort of away or remote from his physical body. We do exactly the same, probably with a slightly more powerful computer, and you can run a colony of robots, say on a planet. You can run them on a site like a damaged reactor, or underground mining, or anywhere. You can benefit from this sort of collective memory, whilst every robot runs its own little brain. Quite easy to do. So that's just a few practical applications. There are many more. Important here is that we don't have to stay with the typical human instinctive fears. We can literally attach any sensory state to instinctive fear, and then make sure it enters the intelligence, its emotional circuitry and algorithms, which will ensure that the robot gets smarter about things and learn to avoid things and share learning, and do the clever things we wanted to do, like humans do. And that's all possible courtesy of the Xzistor concept brain model. Thank you for watching.